just the last couple years I've heard the term neurodivergent. So what I wanted to ask you is, how do you define neurodivergent, and what is that, what should people know about people who are neurodivergent?
And thank you for level setting that conversation, because it is a word that's sort of exploded out into the mainstream.
Oh,
It's everywhere.
I had my friend on this week's episode of the show. We didn't talk about neurodiversity, but she's got a book coming out called They're Not Gaslighting You, which is all about how society has co-opted therapy speak and diagnoses and all of this stuff, and kind of normalized it. And I think this is one of those words that has just exploded, like you said, and there's a lot of ambiguity around it. Like I'm not even sure I understand exactly what it is and what it isn't.
Oh my gosh. I mean, as a therapist, like when people use the words like, I'm so bipolar, I'm like, you're wrong. Or, the classic, I mean, you and I are similar enough in age. I'm assuming you grew up watching Friends, right?
Oh my God. Yes. I just had Friends trivia last night, and we finished in second place, but I think there was some shenanigans, but usually
I can't imagine you not winning that.
No, and we had to do a recount because they had us even lower than second place, and we were keeping our own score. So anyway, I'm a little triggered about that one. But
I'm so sorry.
Yes, I love Friends.
Well, so people will say Monica Geller is so OCD, right? Mm-hmm. But Monica Geller is actually OCPD, obsessive compulsive personality disorder. It's more of a type A, rigid, got to do things my way type, whereas OCD is a series of obsessions and compulsions. It's a behavioral thing, right? And words matter, right? I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, your name's Nick, but I'm going to call you Nikki, right? Like, I'm not going to choose to change that. Like, if you present to me one way, I'm going to give the accurate representation of that. Right. So
it ain't Nikki, I can tell you that.
It ain't Nikki, right? Yeah. It's like when people are like Matthew, I'm like, I'm gonna stop you right there. It's Dr. Matt. It's just Matthew is only if I'm in trouble. My mother and my grandmother are
when they're like, now Matthew, why did you feel you needed to break curfew?
Oh, I hate it. Thanks for that. But not everybody in your life is a narcissist. Not everyone is gaslighting you. Like, use the terms. Even working primarily with kids, like, he's bullying me. I'm like, bullying actually has a very, discrete set of terms for it to truly be bullying. Otherwise, the kid's just an asshole. And that, that's a thing, right? Let's treat the kid who's an asshole. But like, it is, bullying means something, and we're going to use the terms the right way.
Well, when the terms are misused, they lose all their meaning. And that isn't just in psychology. That's everywhere.
Everywhere.
When you call people stuff, or you use terms incorrectly or broadly, they just lose their meaning.
Absolutely. Right. I mean, if you're saying that you're gaslighting me, then you are just lowering that bar to the point where it doesn't mean anything. So then if someone actually does gaslight you later in life, it's almost like the boy who cried wolf.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So well put.
Yeah.
That's so well put. So defining neurodiversity, I sidetracked us again with my little story about therapy speak, but I think
good.
I think like the whole therapy speak thing, and I got an advanced copy of her book, which I've probably read about half of it now. And it's kind of like making me reflect even on this kind of stuff. When I see like neurodiversity, or someone DM'd me not that long ago and mentioned being neurodivergent, and I was like, are you? Like, I had no idea. Like, it's someone I've talked to for a while over DM, of course, but like, are you, or are you kind of broadly using that? And it gets confusing for someone who doesn't quite know. And so that's why I'm like, how do we even define it? And because it's important to define it, because people who are deserve to have, have that, label is not the right word, but have that word mean something for them and their experience. That's the same thing we talked about with like narcissists and people with BPD. It's these people, when you just throw those terms around, the people that actually work on living with that every single day, their experience is completely demeaned. And I'm sure it's the same with this.
Yeah. I mean, I had a kid, and it's funny, OCD is actually a part of neurodivergence, right? So neurodivergence means that you have a brain that is quantifiably different. And it's almost a term that has to exist in contrast to the actual term. So a term for a person with a typical brain is neurotypical, right? About
Mm-hmm.
80% of people are neurotypical. Their brains function more or less as we'd expect them to do for their age and place in life, right? So 4/5 of people, their brains basically work as expected. They're not, the differences they have are not significant from a psychology perspective. So 1/5 of people, their brains are quantifiably different. I can point to a brain scan and be like, check it out, Nick. Your prefrontal cortex, which is where executive functioning skills live, is different than a normal brain, right? This is a typical brain. This is what your brain does. And it is so important for us to ground that work in neuroscience because there are still people out there who think ADHD isn't real, right? There are so many people out there who think that autism is just badism. Right? It's like, these kids are just terrible parenting.
Wait,
I'm like,
with autism, there's still people that think that?
I got some horror stories for you, brother. We can do that in the post show.
Man. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's something that I can point to when I'm talking to administrators and say, these are brain scans. This is science, right? And I can show what this looks like and tell you why it manifests the way it does in people in actual reality. Because for those people, the brain dictates everything we do. So if their brain is wired to do something a different way, then they're just experiencing the world in a fundamentally different way than we are. Now, neurodivergence is never an excuse, but it's always context, right?
Okay.
So the person who's in your sales meeting, right, for you're selling your software, and they're like looking out the window and they're fiddling with something on their desk, it may look like they're being disrespectful, but if they're ADHD, they're actually doing those things to try and regulate and stay in that space rather than being like, I'm bored, I'm leaving. And
right.
Left, right? So there's that piece of this where if you can understand the behaviors as a way of trying to regulate a brain that is not level set to the environment it finds itself in, everything makes a lot more sense.
Which it does. And that's what I like about, and I haven't read your book, but I did look into your book. And that's what I like about kind of the playbook is I often think, and this is totally different, but this concept, I'm a night owl. I hate mornings. I don't want to talk to anyone before 10 a.m. And it would probably be later if society wasn't set up for morning people. So it's like, I often think, when I'm forced to get up for work and to function at 7, 8 in the morning, and it's like my brain isn't built for that. I'd be more productive at 10 p.m. at night than I am at 8 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think the way that the constructs of society are set up, it does create anyone who has a different brain or body function or circadian rhythm or whatever you want to call, or whatever topic you want to breach. You have to like really adjust yourself to your environment. And that is difficult for anyone.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you spend enough time in the bar scene, right? I was a bartender for many years. I remember being in my 20s and I'd worked a Friday night at this Jersey Shore bar, like it was called Columns. And it was just the sort of place you were just throwing Bud Lights at people and they are throwing wet cash at you. And at the end of the night, you're like, it's probably close enough. I don't care. Right. There were no registers, suffice it to say. John Taffer would have hated it. So, and you get home at 3 a.m, reeking of beer. I took a shower. I fell asleep at 4. I slept till 10:30. I woke up and my uncle was there. He was like, look who's sleeping in, right? Some of us have jobs. And I went back upstairs and I got my apron, which was still filled with wet, soggy money, and slapped it down on the table. I was like, there's $791 in here, right? Cash. So like, don't tell me I don't work. Don't tell me, like, my way of being is not your way of being. It doesn't make it worse. And that's actually a fundamental tenet of the neurodiversity movement, is that differences aren't deficits.
Thank you for listening to this clip from the full episode of Eyes Wide Open. Please like and subscribe for daily clips and new episodes that drop every Tuesday. I appreciate you.